January 9th, 1945, 7:42 a.m. Hatten, France. The coldest winter in 50 years. The ground is frozen iron. The air hurts to breathe. Inside a shattered command post at the edge of town, a man is making coffee. Not a sergeant, not a squad leader, not a soldier with a reputation. He is a cook. His name is Vito Bertoldo. The tin cup steams in his hands. The coffee is the only warm thing in a 20 below zero landscape. He has no business being here. The army told him 3 times he wasn't good enough for combat. Bad eyes, flat feet, 5'4", 135 pounds soaking wet. They tried to reject him, put him in the kitchen peeling potatoes. That's where a guy like Vito belongs. But Vito Bertoldo is in a command post, and he's about to do something impossible. The ground begins to shake. Not a tremor, a rhythmic mechanical pounding that vibrates through the frozen earth. The coffee ripples in his cup. He looks out the window through the morning mist. Tanks, German Mark Roman IV Panzers, half-drecks, Panzer tank destroyers. Behind them, hundreds of infantrymen in white snow camouflage. An entire panzer division rolling toward this village. This is Operation Nordwind, Hitler's last gamble. And it's about to roll directly over this tiny command post. American soldiers are screaming, retreating past him. Officers yelling to fall back. The line is breaking. The mathematics of survival say, leave. Run. Live to fight another day. Vito Bertoldo doesn't run. He puts down his coffee. He picks up a belt of ammunition. He walks to the .30 caliber water-cooled Browning machine gun in the hallway. He racks the bolt, and he waits. What happens over the next 48 hours is impossible. If you saw it in a movie, you'd walk out. Too fake. Lazy writing. Nobody survives that. But Vito Bertoldo does survive. He doesn't just survive. He stops an army. This is the story of the man the army didn't want, who became the soldier the Germans couldn't kill. Vito R. Bertoldo was born December 1st, 1916, in Decatur, Illinois. A coal mining town. Smokestacks, black lungs, soot-covered families pulling coal out of the earth for 12 hours a day. He grew up during the Depression, learned early that nothing is given to you. You fight for your food. You fight for your job. You fight for respect. He wasn't a tough guy. He was small, quiet, unassuming. He worked as a truck driver, kept his head down, did his job, sent money home. Then Pearl Harbor happens. Like millions of other Americans, Vito walks into the recruitment office. Chest out, ready to serve, ready to fight. The recruiter takes one look at him, checks his vision. 20/40 in one eye, 20/50 in the other. Bad enough that he can barely see a rifle sight clearly. Checks his feet, flat, no arch, medically classified as a liability in combat. Checks his frame, 5'4", 135 pounds, too small for heavy combat gear. 4F, unfit for service. It's a slap in the face. The world is on fire. Soldiers are dying in the Pacific. And his country is telling him he's not good enough. He tries again. Same answer. Rejected. He tries again. Rejected a 3rd time. Most men would have stopped. They would have taken the classification card, gone back to driving trucks, and called it a day. No shame. The military has standards for a reason. Vito Bertoldo doesn't stop. He pesters the board. He argues. He demands a waiver. Finally, in 1942, the army gets tired of saying no. They classify him as limited service. Limited service means you can wear the uniform, but we don't expect you to fight. You're a liability. Cook, drive a truck, be an MP, but don't expect a rifle. He gets assigned to to the 42nd Infantry Division. The Rainbow Division, a legendary unit. But Vito isn't a rifleman. He's a cook. Powdered eggs, chipped beef on toast, lukewarm coffee in tin cups. By the time the 42nd ships to France in late 1944, Vito has managed to talk his way into a transfer to the infantry. But he's still the old man of the platoon, 28 years old. Everyone else is 19, 20. Nobody looks at Vito Bertoldo and sees a killer. December 1944. The Battle of the Bulge is raging in Belgium. All eyes are on Bastogne. All the reserves are rushing north. But the Germans aren't stupid. They know the Americans have thinned out their lines in the south to reinforce the north. The Alsace region of France is lightly defended, perfect for a second offensive. Operation Nordwind. Northwind. The plan is simple. Smash through the American lines, capture Strasbourg, cut the US 7th Army in half. If it works, it could prolong the war by a year. Maybe longer. Hatten is a tiny village. A few farmhouses, a church, a main road. Nothing special, but it sits directly in the path of the German advance. Defending Hatten is the 1st Battalion, 242nd Infantry Regiment. They are green. They haven't seen heavy combat. They are cold. They are tired. And they have no idea what is coming. January 9th. The hammer drops. The Germans hit Hatten with everything. Artillery, Nebelwerfer rockets, flamethrowers, tanks. The volume of fire is terrifying. The screaming rockets, the screaming mimes, howl through the air and shatter the stone buildings. The ground turns into a moonscape of mud and ice. The American perimeter collapses. Platoons are overrun. Communication lines are cut. It is pure chaos. In the middle of this chaos is the battalion command post, a large building near the entrance to town. It's supposed to be a safe place. Officers looking at maps. Radios buzzing. But the front line has moved. The front line is now the front door. 7:45 a.m. The first wave of German infantry hits the command post. They are confident. They have tanks. They see Americans retreating. They expect the building to fall in minutes. Vito Bertoldo is in the hallway with a .30 caliber water-cooled Browning machine gun. A heavy, brutal weapon. 500 rounds per minute. It's designed to suppress enemy infantry across open ground. He sees the Germans coming across the snow-covered field. He doesn't panic. He doesn't shake. He waits. He waits until he can see the steam of their breath. Then he opens fire. The Browning roars. The hallway fills with smoke. Brass casings pile up on the frozen floor like gold coins. The first rank of German soldiers drops. The rest dive for cover. They return fire. Bullets chew up the doorframe. Plaster explodes off the walls. Vito ignores it. He traverses the gun left and right, sweeping the field. One man. One gun. A one-man wall of lead. The attack stalls. The Germans are confused. They think they've hit a fortified bunker with a whole platoon inside. They don't realize it's a 135-pound cook with bad eyes and flat feet. But the Germans have tanks. A Mark Roman IV Panzer rumbles up the street. The turret rotates. The 75 main gun points directly at the command post window. The shell hits. The explosion is deafening. The concussion lifts Vito off his feet and slams him against the wall. Dust and debris fill the air. The roof partially collapses. Most men would be dead. Unconscious. In shock. Vito shakes the dust from his helmet. He checks his gun. It's still working. He crawls back to the window. The tank is reloading. The infantry is moving up again, thinking the gunner is dead. Vito pulls the trigger. The Browning sings. The infantry scatters. This goes on for hours. The Germans try to flank him. Vito moves the gun to another window. They try to rush the back door. He moves to the hallway. He's running back and forth, dragging a heavy machine gun and ammo boxes, firing, moving. To the Germans outside, it sounds like there's a whole platoon in the building. By noon, his water jacket is boiling. The barrel glows red hot. He's running low on ammunition. But he isn't leaving. Night falls, 20 below zero. The darkness is terrifying. The Germans use the night to infiltrate. They crawl through the rubble. They use flamethrowers to burn out basements. The screams of burning men echo through the village. Vito is exhausted. 12 hours of continuous fire. His shoulder is bruised black and blue from recoil. His ears are ringing so loud he can barely hear. But he stays awake. He keeps his finger on the trigger. Every shadow that moves gets a burst. Every sound gets a burst. An American officer tells him they're evacuating. Too dangerous. The building is falling apart. You can leave. Vito looks at him. He looks at the road behind the command post. That road is the only escape route for the rest of the battalion. If the Germans take this building, they control the road. If they control the road, the battalion is trapped. It will be a slaughter. I'll stay, Vito says. I'll cover the withdrawal. The officer leaves. Vito is alone. For the rest of the night, he holds the line. Probe after probe. He fires blindly into the dark, relying on instinct. Morning comes. January 10th. You would think the Germans would give up. They don't. One building is holding up their entire advance in this sector. They decide to erase it. They bring up a self-propelled gun, an 88 assault gun, a weapon designed to kill heavy tanks. They point it at Vito's window. Boom! The wall disintegrates. Vito is thrown across the room. Shrapnel cuts into him. He's bleeding. He's dazed. The Germans rush the building. They know he's dead. Vito crawls out of the rubble. His machine gun is buried under debris. He digs it out. He clears the action. He sets it up on a pile of broken bricks. And he starts shooting again. Imagine the German soldier leading that charge. You just fired an 88 shell into a room. You watch the building collapse. And suddenly, bullets are flying at your face again. It must have felt like fighting a ghost. The battle rages for another full day. 48 hours. 2 full days of constant, close quarters combat. Vito has barely eaten. He hasn't slept. He's running on pure adrenaline and stubbornness. By the evening of January 10th, the situation is critical. The ammunition is almost gone. The building is literally burning around him. The roof is caving in. But the battalion has successfully pulled back to a secondary defensive line. His job is done. He's bought them the time they needed. Now he just has to get out alive. But Vito doesn't just run. That's not his style. He waits until the Germans are massing for a final assault. He waits until they're out in the open. He fires his last belt of ammunition. A long, sustained burst that pins them down one last time. Then he grabs his rifle. He slips out the back window. He crawls through the snow, dodging mortar rounds and sniper fire. He makes it back to American lines. He walks into the new command post. He's covered in white dust, blood, and soot. He looks like a walking corpse. He walks up to the commander. He reports that the position is lost, but the enemy has been delayed. Then he collapses. Let's count what happened. In 48 hours, Vito Bertoldo repelled repeated assaults by a Panzer division. He is credited with killing at least 40 enemy soldiers. The real number is likely much higher. He destroyed or suppressed multiple machine gun positions. He drew the fire of tanks and artillery away from his retreating comrades. And he did it all while being physically unqualified for combat in a building that was being demolished around him. The official Medal of Honor citation reads like a movie. He exposed himself to withering fire, held his ground, fired his gun with devastating effect, moved his weapon to the exposed hallway, remained at his post for 48 hours. It is a document of absolute, unyielding will. Vito receives the Medal of Honor from President Truman, the same ceremony where Leonard Funk stands beside him. The clerk and the cook, the two most unlikely killers in the U.S. Army. You would think Vito would be a household name. You would think there would be movies. You would think every kid in America would know the story of the cook who fought a Panzer division. But you don't know him. After the war, Vito goes back to Illinois. He is quiet. He is humble. He gets a job. Can you guess where? The Veterans Administration. Just like Leonard Funk, he becomes a contact representative for the VA in Chicago. He spends the rest of his life helping other veterans. Guys who lost legs, guys who lost eyes, guys who left their souls in France. He sits at a desk. He fills out forms. He listens to their stories. He never brags. He rarely talks about Hatten. If you met him in 1955, you would see a small, polite man in thick glasses. You would never guess he once stared down a Panzer division and made it blink. But the war takes its toll. The stress, the physical damage, the memories. Vito Bertoldo dies of cancer in 1966, only 49 years old. He is buried in Golden Gate National Cemetery in San Bruno, California. Why does this story matter? We have a specific idea of what a hero looks like. The huge muscles, the screaming warrior, the guy who runs into battle firing 2 guns at once. The Hollywood version. But real war isn't Hollywood. Real war is cold, dirty, terrifying, and the people who win it aren't usually the super soldiers. They are the truck drivers from Illinois, the store clerks from Pennsylvania, the cooks with flat feet and bad eyes who were told they weren't good enough. Vito Bertoldo didn't fight because he loved violence. He didn't fight because he wanted a medal. He fought because he had a job to do. He fought because there were men behind him who needed time to escape. He fought because he refused to let fear make his decisions. At Hatten, the Germans had everything. The tanks, the numbers, the firepower. But they didn't have Vito Bertoldo. And that was their mistake. There is a moment, somewhere around hour 30, where Vito is blown across the room for the 3rd time. He is bleeding. He is deaf. He is exhausted beyond human limits. He could have stayed down. Nobody would have blamed him. But he stands up. He picks up the gun. He goes back to the window. That is the difference between a soldier and a legend. A soldier does his duty. A legend does the impossible and then clocks out and goes back to work. So the next time you feel like the odds are against you, the next time you feel like you aren't big enough or smart enough or talented enough, the next time you are told no, remember the cook from Illinois. Remember the man who stood in a broken window in a frozen village in France. Remember the man who watched a Panzer tank point a cannon at his face and decided to shoot back. Remember Vito Bertoldo. If you know any other unsung World War II heroes or powerful events that deserve the spotlight, let us know in the comments. Your suggestion could be our next story. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and join War Lens for more in-depth World War history, battle breakdowns, and legendary war stories.